Hello and welcome to episode 3 of our podcast, which is now tentatively called The Road to Abundance. So the Road to Abundance episode 3. My name's Gordon Mullan. I'm one of EPAM's lead business analysts and with a keen interest in disruptive technologies. So that's covering AI and robotics and lots of other things as well.
Oh, hi, I'm Govind Shukla. I lead the insurance business analysis practice in the UK for us. And just like Gordon, I have the same interest in cutting edge technology, how it impacts us and how it shapes the future. Yeah, so we're looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, please do remember to have a look at our EngX space. That's engx.space. And you'll also find links to subscribe to that, lots of club resources on there. And also you'll find the AI tools catalog on GitHub, awclub.github.io/catalog. So you'll find some details on there. As always, let's jump straight into the news and let's start with the big fish. And obviously the first big fish to start with is OpenAI, who after, it says under public pressure, OpenAI backed off from becoming a fully non-profit. I think Elon's whinging might have had something to do with it as well.
Absolutely.
But what that means is that the non-profit board is going to retain the shares and control over the commercial wing, which means that it's a public benefit corporation, a PBC, which is a hybrid of for-profit and non-profit goals, and it's become a bit of a standard in AI startups.
Yeah, I think this is the conversation of how do we safely make money from AI, which is infinitely scalable potentially in the future, and how do we still make sure that people who are building it get some monetary advantage, but they don't become effectively richer than the economies of the world. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. I know that Elon has been challenging OpenAI on this, honestly, and he has skin in the game because he put his money into the company when he started. So he has all the rights to kind of kick off the conversation. But I think there was always speculation, and basically this finally cracked open when something known as the civil leaders and the attorney generals of Delaware and California specifically, and our friend Elon, when all the pressure came up, they just decided that okay, that's a better strategy to avoid all the noise and deliver the value they have been delivering already.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good thing. It would have been a significant pivot away from the original mission if they'd been allowed to become a fully non-profit. So I think this kind of hybrid approach moves them a bit away from that, but at least does still keep that element of it in the frame. One of the other bits that they're doing is, and this relatively recent news, they're acquiring Windsurf, apparently, deal pending for $3 billion, which is actually quite a huge sum considering that they've only got reported $40 million in annualized revenue. I wish somebody would pay me that kind of multiple for what I do.
Exactly. I think this is something we mentioned the last episode as well, but at that point, it was rumored, and sometimes rumors are true. So, and I think the comment from us last time was that this is not surprising at all, given the success Cursor is seeing. And I think it's was it $10 billion of offers.
I think it was valued at $9 billion, I think.
$9 billion. So you can see,
but they're after another $900 million, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see that this just becomes the OpenAI's response or mirroring to Cursor becoming the idea of choice for vibe coding or new coding, effectively. And OpenAI then trying to acquire Windsurf for $3 billion is just saying, okay, we'll take Windsurf, we'll inject all our best models in it, and somehow make sure that we're tightly coupled with Windsurf, and therefore we'll be able to beat the advantage Cursor has with its usage base and fast-growing revenue base and the money coming from the VC. So yeah, interesting space to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely got a bit of FOMO going on because the valuations are climbing all the time. So it's $3 billion now, but we've seen if Anysphere are at $9 billion now. Just back in December last year, they were valued at $2.5 billion. So that's a 3x jump in 5 months. Let's see where Windsurf is in a few months' time. What do you reckon? Do you think either Cursor or Windsurf are going to fade away over time? Why does OpenAI even need them?
Yeah, I think this is what exactly what I've been just saying. I think that, again, going back to our recurring pattern, repeating things is not a bad idea, because if you strongly believe in it, either people will disagree, and please
Mm,
comment, guys, if you disagree, because we
mm,
like the
please.
back and forth and the discussion. The key thing is that you remember we discussing that there is a path towards ASI, AGI, that's kicking off, saying, oh, we don't need all these IDs or coding AIs, because at the end of it, English is the best programming language, or whatever language is the best programming language, because you can control it, you
Yeah,
can control the instruction to the AI. And if AI can understand that without loss, it'll be able to give you the right answers or the right things you want. So that's definitely one area of belief. The other option is what Cloud and Cursor and Windsurf are trying to do is, can we make models that are really good at coding? And can we make IDE and user experience interfaces? Because at the moment, if you look at just ChatGPT, Perplexity, Cloud, most of them are just chat-based interfaces. But
mm,
what Cursor and Windsurf start doing is taking GitHub to the next level, making like interaction with the code a bit more interactive and control the right functions in the right way. Instead of rewriting the whole program, you can just edit small bits. So I think that there is some mileage behind both Cursor and Windsurf about this smart IDE of the future. Because obviously at the moment
yeah,
we've got, and we have to watch out for the other partner as well in this game, which is Microsoft, because the
yeah,
Visual Studio Code is almost like the de facto standard at the moment. And they were quite visionary, and Satya acquired GitHub back in the day, and it was like, well, not taken very positively, but they said that it's a strategic move, because they knew that they potentially Copilot was already in the making when they made the decision, but they didn't realize that there'll be other models like Cursor and Windsurf coming in. So it
yeah,
is not a new arena if you think about it from Microsoft perspective. It's just
yeah.
opening it up to more players.
It is. I think the point I was coming from though is that Windsurf and Cursor and Visual Studio stuff like that, they are the clues in the name, integrated development environments. They are for developers, but I do wonder how long it'll be before we get to the point where we trust what they're doing in the underlying code sufficiently to essentially kind of hide that, and it just does go back to either a chat interface or just a conversation, with it showing you the output of what it's doing rather than what's going on underneath the hood. So I think we're a way
I
away
mean, yeah,
from that yet.
interesting. Way away from that. And I think the other thing that we'll talk about, I'm sure, at some point in this podcast is reasoning from first principles.
Yeah.
I think that the key thing is that organizational strategy is capitalistic and profit driven. And therefore, the reason why people want to use Cursor, Windsurf, and generate code and then get the results of the back of the code is because they want consistency of behavior and repeating the behavior. Because the strategy of a capitalist organization is not necessarily the same if you think it from first principles. From first principles, you'll think, oh, how do I get the best thing for the customers? But an organization that has to make money and monetize the hell out of everything, they have
Yeah.
to put a slightly different bent on how they deliver things to you. Simple, the really simple thing, right? Tiering of features, to say, in the free tier you only get 3 pro searches, versus in
Mm,
the pro tier you're able to use operator. So being able to put that limitation comes with the human aspect of writing the strategy. And this is almost discovering that what are things that AI will never take over. And this is potentially, if we still have capitalist model make profit making
mm,
still
mm.
existing, and obviously those elements will always be a human driven activity.
Yeah, that takes us off down a whole different route, which we haven't got time for at the
Oh,
moment. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
maybe
sorry.
come back to it in a later episode. It's definitely something
Yes,
to
yeah,
explore.
absolutely, we will.
Yeah, definitely. So some of the other bits that OpenAI have been up to, so they've been moving into consumer products and search, with been adding some autocomplete and shopping info into ChatGPT. And memory is now going to personalize shopping for Pro and Plus users, also using their chat history. And it's really good to see memory is now being available across chats in the EU as well. So it's not just the US for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did that exercise. Like, I think like everybody was trying to do, trying to say, "Can you describe me?" Um, Given my memory about myself, and obviously, it's just trying to do the best. But yeah, you can see that the memory does have effect, and it does take into account the kinds of things or kinds of perspectives you'll be interested in when you search for something. So I think that is going to be useful. But yeah, I mean, again, we did cover last time as well, psychophantic chat GPT 4.0.
Yeah.
So you do get some of that as well to say,
Well, that's because
you know,
you're asking it to tell you about yourself, so it's just
yeah,
trying to be nice and say nice things to you. So
exactly.
it's your fault, Govind. That's what it is.
Exactly.
You've been training it to suck up to you.
Come on, computer, get things done. And then R2D2 goes, bleep, 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 bleep. Yes, sir. Yes, Captain.
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, the next thing that they've been doing is Deep Hub. Deep Hub. Deep Research can now analyze GitHub. I'm mixing up my words here. Being able to provide reference reports, which can be good for developers and also help them make sure it's not hallucinating. Because again, that's always something to watch out for. But if you've got those cross references, you can at least go back to the source code and go, right, yes, okay, it is telling me the right things.
I think this is like almost the path towards getting things right, because
Mm.
I have been asking not deep research but normal 4.5 by just pasting the link to my GitHub repository to basically find out errors or how can I make this code more efficient, and it has been able to give me answers about it. And it's good to know that with deep research, it's just, you can imagine, multiply that into potentially links to 20 repositories, and selecting code from each one of them and getting you almost the common denominator of a really efficient solution. So yeah, something to watch out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And uh, the other thing as well that they've said is that their open source models will be lagging one generation behind their internal models. Apparently, their CPO, so Chief Product Officer Kevin Weil, cited national interest in US-China rivalry as the reason. So no
Yeah,
surprise there.
yeah,
No surprise there.
no
Yeah.
surprise there. But I think this is like, again, sandbagging or whatever you call it, to
Mm.
say, to 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 focus on preserving the advantage. Pretty much, I think that's, just imagine exactly what a deep search did to them uh, earlier is
Mm.
exactly what sorry, it's not deep
DeepSeek, I
search,
think.
deep seek. That's what
Yeah.
they did to them by just learning using their weights,
Yeah.
and trained a better model in them. So it's just literally that. It's not national advantage, it's a very personal advantage. But that's
Yeah.
the game we play anyways, right?
Yeah. Keep one step ahead. One step
Yeah.
ahead. So why don't we move on to Google as the next one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Google updated the Gemini 2.5 Pro IO edition. It has much better at front end development. It has top web development benchmarks. It's available on Vertex, AI Studio, and Tray IDE. So you can imagine that's the direction of flow where Google also has thrown their hat into the game. And not just this, they've already announced their Firebase Studio. So it's not just it's not that they're committing to just Firebase Studio as their main kind of game towards the vibe coding
Mm.
hype, but they're also going into the other direction, updating the Gemini 2.5 Pro models to enable things like things pretty much to do with coding.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be a big, strong focus for them, and that kind of shows up in one of the other bits we've got coming up in a moment. But they've also, through DeepMind, announced Genie 2, which is another new foundation model that generates interactive 3D worlds from a single image. We've seen quite a bit of this already, so I think this isn't necessarily a new capability that we haven't seen from anybody else, but this is a new capability from
But I
them.
think I think it'll be interesting. I would like to play with it if we're able to get early access, because what I want to understand is, what do they mean when they say interactive 3D worlds? Is it almost like generating a game like from an image? Because that'll be epic. if I can potentially not just interact in terms of seeking to places like on Google Earth, you're walking on a street, but rather being able to manipulate objects in that generated world. I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And a really cool one, and this was literally just yesterday, this one came out. They announced Alpha Evolve. I said we were going to come back to the coding aspect, because
Yeah.
this is a Gemini-powered coding agent for designing advanced algorithms for math and practical applications in computing. So what it's doing, they're saying, is that it's combining the creativity of the large language models with automated evaluators, and that it can go beyond the single function discovery to evolve entire code bases and develop a lot more complex algorithms. So one of the ones they did, which apparently has been in production for over a year, continuously recovers on average about 0.7% of Google's worldwide compute resources. I mean, 0.7% doesn't sound a lot, but when you've got the amount of compute that Google has,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money, a lot of computing resource that it frees up.
Absolutely. And I think that the way I see this is that, I was talking to one of the customers yesterday, and one of the key problem statements they were coming in with was, oh, we have got a lot of calculations that we have to do to get to an insurance price, and it's all done using the brains of these genius actuarial staff, and they come up with these calculations, they update it, and then they hand it over to the developers to build those calculations in. But just imagine something like Alpha Evolved, and this is not fiction. This is something that's possible
Yeah,
now. It just takes in those actuarial models and is able to, you know, in a chat interface, give an actuary access to all their mathematical tools, and then the actuary can just interact using text, or define their actuarial specification to just get a working model that can potentially increase pricing efficiency by 0.7%. I'm sure a lot of insurance organizations and other financial firms that do this will definitely gain from it. And I think actuaries will like it because a lot of math is not about inventing new math for everything, but rather it's r- making sure you have reusable blocks to put
yeah.
in place, like Lego, to pull together that larger picture for yourself. So I'm sure this will be a if I mean it's already been doing it, so it's not as if it needs to prove its worth. So
Yeah.
let's see how it goes.
And this is what we're saying. Maybe it touches a little bit on what you said about reasoning from first principles, because what they said is they've actually applied the system to over 50 open problems in mathematical analysis and geometry and combinatorics and number theory. And it meant that they could set up most experiments in a matter of hours. And what they did was, first of all, the cases that they gave, in about 75% of the cases, it rediscovered state of the art solutions. So kind of confirming that that's as good as it gets at the moment. But in about 20% of cases, it actually improved the best previously known solution. So, kind of coming up with stuff that humans haven't yet been able to come up with and making progress on those corresponding open problems. So, you say it's really helping us accelerate our discovery and just, make stuff faster. It was improving, kernel code as well, and all sorts of stuff that normally you wouldn't touch, but it's finding better ways to do it.
I think that's just really amazing, and that shows that it's not just about AI coming in and doing everything. It's basically about humans thinking now that I have this capability as an individual person with a great idea in their head, thinking, oh, how will I find the actuaries to get all these things done? You can imagine you have like a superpower at your hands now if you have access to Alpha Evolve,
Yeah.
almost design your product, simulate your product in different environments and test it out and run customer segments through it, and you get like your guaranteed 20% margin, and you can just launch it using that. You can imagine that this is what a 10x developer to a 20x product person with real revenue, instead of
Yeah.
needing a team of 20 people to generate revenue.
Yeah, and a lot of these open problems that it's looking at are the foundation of lots of different areas. So it's not just one industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, applies a lot. And final bit on Google before we move off is that ahead of I/O 2025, Google's announced it's taking Gemini to more Android-powered devices and platforms. So it's going to first launch on the Wear OS smartwatches, and then Google TV-powered televisions, Android Auto cars, and the upcoming Android XR headset. I saw the phrase that said, "If you're developing for Android, you're developing for XR." So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's exactly it, and obviously everyone is looking forward to this, you know, conjunction, I would say, of VR and AI, because
Mm.
that's just going to be something to watch out.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to Microsoft. So what have they
Yeah.
been up to?
No, yeah, they've been, and they're like one of the leading players, and they're always looking ahead. So definitely, that's the reason why we do track them as well. They have released reasoning versions of their model 5.4. So it's called 5.4 reasoning, which has 14.7 billion parameters. So they are entering the big parameter size game with their models. It takes in 32,000 tokens, and there's another version called 5.4 reasoning plus. It has longer thinking windows, and then there is a 5.4 mini reasoning, which is 3.6 billion parameters. And as we know, all these mini reasoning models are tailored for being able to run completely independently on phones. So I think that's definitely something to look forward to. I mean, and an anecdote I want to share with you is really funny. I was just thinking, doing a thinking exercise with one of my mates, and like, okay, there were, and you remember there were blackouts in Spain
Mm, yeah,
and Portugal. So like, oh, we have to think about a scenario like that. How do we survive if suddenly it blacks out? Like, okay, then we're thinking about, oh, we need to buy all these solar things that charge themselves to use some electronics and
mhm,
devices. And also you don't have internet at that point, so what, how do we do things? Like, oh yeah, but we have these models that you can run. And you remember I did mention to you as well, Gordon, that we ran, I was able to run the DeepSeek model completely, the 32K version,
yes, I remember you
completely
saying, yeah,
on my laptop. So
yeah,
similarly, think about something like a mini reasoning 3.6 billion parameter model running on a phone, being with you. It's
yeah,
basically is your survival, the most important thing you need to survive. Basically, you can, and it can reason from first principle because it's powerful. It can help you survive. It can help you get first principle reasonings of
yeah,
things that you can eat to survive that you can't even imagine, because it is able
yeah,
to work out non-human things that you can never think about. And then the solar helps charge your phone that runs the model. So that's pretty much what you need to
yeah,
start the whole ecosystem. Or else, just think about it, if you don't have it, the number of books and number of hard drives that you need to have of content to
yeah,
make you aware about things you can do in such a scenario, I think
yeah.
it's quite powerful.
It is absolutely. It's that ability to compress the world's knowledge down into essentially a file or an executable that you can run locally. And we'll come back to that point actually a little bit later on. The reason I chuckled when you mentioned that was my brain went fee fi fi four. So fee fi, yeah. So yeah, thinking about like giants. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
Microsoft
yeah.
are a
No,
bit of a giant in this space.
they
Um,
are. They are.
so, latest thing also, they've done an update to Copilot. So, they've now added pages, which is a bit like ChatGPT's Canvas. So, it's allowing the user to collaborate with Copilot and ask the assistant to tweak and expand or polish its responses. So, you've kind of got a working document, but it doesn't seem to have the coding capabilities like ChatGPT's Canvas. So, it's useful, but it's not quite a direct like for like copy or
Yeah, I mean,
replacement
I
for it.
think I did get that ping on my laptop that you can now use Canvas. I did try to say, oh, generate a code for something. It just gave me the code in text, and it didn't really bring up the Canvas to me. So
Okay.
but it did. I mean, that's how I found out that they are doing Copilot is doing Canvas, because when I was having conversation, it popped up in the chat saying, "Oh, you can do that now." And I
Right.
and I just tried it, but I think just maybe they're rolling it out, and maybe my local client for Copilot needs to be updated to be able to kind of have that. But I would just say that it's a really small think that they're not figured it out yet how to smoothly release things,
Mm.
and integrate it, which I quite like with ChatGPT and OpenAI. They do introduce things and they're almost instantly available, and they do let everybody know how, like, they don't, like, nobody needs to go and enable something or
Yeah.
update something. It just kind of picks it up.
Yeah, it's maybe another one of those regional rollouts. I'll have to wait and see. And I'm sure,
Yeah,
given
potentially.
it's Microsoft, then I'm sure coding will become part of it. But one of the good pieces around interactivity, interoperability, that's the word I'm looking for, that Microsoft have announced that they're adopting Google's agent to agent framework. So they're going to be launching it on Azure AI Foundry and Copilot Studio. And what that means is it's going to allow enterprises to develop AI agents that interoperate across platforms by design. So hopefully preventing vendor lock-in. So, rather than cloud to cloud, we've got agent to agent.
I think that's the future, anyways. And Google will obviously like to be the bellwether of it. So I think it's definitely interesting. It's launching soon on Azure AI Foundry and
Yeah.
Copilot Studio. And it will also allow enterprises to develop AI agents that interoperate across platforms by design, hopefully prevent vendor lock-in. So I think that the way I see this is that the enterprise play for Google, apart from just being the cloud provider and some open source models, just trying to get that the bellwether position in that world. And coming now to Meta, interesting developments for them as well. They have announced Llama API at an event known as LlamaCon. The API would be multimodal. It'll be allow tool calling, structured outputs compatible with OpenAI API. So I think Meta, with their gambit of keeping up with everybody else by using the OpenAI strategy, is almost like the scorch the earth type of model they've gone for, where say we know that Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI are going to do these closed models and keep advanced development to themselves. And Mark Zuckerberg said, "Okay, I'm just going to make the field wide open by launching all these open source models that everybody together develops, so that without Meta needing to pour the same amount of compute and money and mind into
Yeah.
developing it. It just builds as a community, which is exactly the right strategy, because obviously you can have only one such player who gets the win, but it levels the playing field for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And since we're talking about llamas, it's definitely good to be opening the field for them. Sorry, my sister out in New Zealand had llamas for a while, so that was kind of what that put
Yeah,
me
I
in
know. I
put me
got
in
that.
mind of. So they're also Meta's also going to be planning inference on the Cerebrus and Grok hardware as well. So extending out with that, and they've launched the Meta AI app with a Discover feed and also smart glasses integration, because obviously they've got the um, partnership with, what's the name of the company, Luxelor, isn't it, that does the
Yeah.
Ray Bans, and doing that. So that's also available in the EU. So I think that's definitely where we'll see more and more of this going, as the glasses become, lighter weight, longer lasting, and don't look so geeky as some of the early stuff did.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's their gambit, right? They changed the name to Meta for a reason.
Mm.
And so we definitely need to keep an eye on them to keep track of developments on their end. And they've also dropped effectively two new models. One of them is the perception language model.
Okay.
Basically, it's an kind of an AI for visual tasks like extracting details of subjects' actions at a given time. And the other one is Locate 3D, which is an object localization AI, which is almost aimed at helping robots understand how to interact with the surroundings. So you can
Yeah, I
see that
saw this one.
they're actually putting the real metal and producing the models that are VR focused and are geared towards taking VR to the next level, instead of it being just something you put it on for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
These models show that the potential of what use cases it can enable going forward.
Yeah, so I guess it's an extension of the kind of SLAM approach, the simultaneous location and mapping, I think it stands
Yeah,
for. So Waves, if anybody's seen, I certainly remember it with the Tesla Optimus that we'll come back to later. Some of the early videos of that where it's kind of got this sort of dot cloud as it's walking around the building, so figuring out where they are. Yeah,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, a little bit about XAI, not a huge amount on this one at the moment. They have added voice assistant to the Grok app for iOS and Android, and added also beta support for PDF generation at grok.com. There was one other bit as well. I think they obviously we're waiting for Grok 3.5.
yeah.
So that's on its way, but Elon said that there's a bit more polishing needed to do, so that would take about another week, and I think that was a couple of days ago. So hopefully, between now and the next episode, we'll see what Grok 3.5 can do.
Yeah, I think so. Let's look forward to that because again, Elon is all in on this as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
I really have big hopes for him as well. And his perspective is again just like we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg's level playing field concept. Elon is also trying. I mean, I think XAI is again another attempt to keep the play field level
yeah,
by introducing the first principle thinking now, and again the Grok 3.5 I'm sure would be something to watch out for anyways. And
yeah.
yeah, and moving on now, we
Oh
have
well, actually,
perplexity.
before you
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
before you do that, you reminded me of something else that he was saying as well. But a couple of things. I mean,
Right.
Colossus One, or the first phase of Colossus, is now up and running. So that's the training for XAI. But he was recently talking about we need to bring a terawatt of computing online.
Yeah.
And that's just you start working out what the numbers are and what the costs would be for doing that. I mean, it's this isn't next year or 3 years time probably, but this is where things are heading. That amount of compute. So we're just seeing the early days of the computing capabilities for training these kinds of models.
I think, and you're right. I think that this is already played out, and all the leaders are speaking about this. That the uh, the energy needs required to
Mm,
fulfill all this growth is it's more than exponential. So the natural instinct is how does this really happen? Is it solar farms? Is it nuclear? So I think that's definitely an area to watch out for in terms of how this dynamic plays out,
yeah.
because obviously there are countries where they will not really worry about are they using coal or not.
Mm,
But I think that if if we are really worried about the world, and when all these things scale, we need to be very very careful about how we are powering these things to protect ourselves in the long term.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure the day will come when we start looking to build a Dyson sphere around the
Oh,
sun to capture all of the energy. But I'm heading off into my sci-fi books at this
oh
point.
no no no!
So
Love it, love it. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure we'll deep dive on that because we'll have some interesting topic come up regardless. So we will definitely talk about that in some of the podcasts as well. So coming back to perplexity,
mm,
perplexity you now access using WhatsApp. I think that is the trend these days. Anyways,
mm,
every organization is trying to enable their AI via WhatsApp. And if you want to, the number is +1 833 436 3285, and we'll put the number in the notes as well just so that you get it. But the idea is if you add that as a contact, you can then basically message the contract a contact and they'll be perplexity. I really hope that it somehow is able to link it back. If some of you have like a Perplexity Pro account, you're able to map the access together. But obviously, this shows a minor failure for Perplexity and defense from Meta, because Meta is now integrating Meta into WhatsApp as a
mm,
native integration, anyways. So not surprised that they didn't allow Perplexity to be natively integrated into WhatsApp. So
yeah,
there is a bit of a barrier of adding this, but I like Perplexity's view on things and the way they have gone about doing search, because their use case has really been very laser focused
mm,
on doing search better. And I really like some of the search responses coming out of Perplexity is not trying to give you more context than you need and
mm,
trying to figure out what you're needing and give you an answer from that perspective. And always focused on bringing the right links and citations. So I really think some people will like using really having handy WhatsApp access. But
Yeah.
you still have the Perplexity app, so maybe this is just another kind of, I would say,
Yeah.
table stakes that now everybody has to do.
But it's something. I mean, ChatGPT enabled this a while ago. I actually added the contact to my wife's phone so that she could give a go, because it's an interface and it's an app that so
Yeah,
many of us have, and sort of the more, I think, importantly, kind of more, if you like, the general public have
yeah.
got, that they're used to using it. It's an interface that they understand. I'd be interested to see some of the kind of usage stats. What proportion or what numbers of inquiries they're getting through the WhatsApp channel. But yeah, I'll wait and see.
I think it'll be interesting. I think when you say this now, I realize the one thing I'm struggling with recently is that I've been downloading all these apps, all these models on my phone, and with all these different apps coming up. What
Yeah.
I've realized, for some reason, and my speculation is, I'll tell you in a second, any of my existing apps, not just AI apps, but any apps, the recent updates for all these apps have been huge. They
Mm.
have been like 600 MB, 800 MB, 400 MB updates on all the apps that I have, my banking apps, my travel apps, all the apps I have are getting these large sized updates. And
Okay.
I can almost speculate the reason why they're doing is it's kind of some kind of weights or something they're transferring to their apps so that they can run the
Okay.
AI behind
Yeah.
the scenes. So I think that that's a trend now, which means that maybe OpenAI and Perplexity know the fact that people don't want to download apps on their phones
Mm.
because all these other companies, other consumer companies, not AI companies, are incorporating AI, and that requires larger updates. And I was almost flabbergasted. In the last 2 weeks, I've had my storage limit hit like 15 times because
Oh,
every other
blimey.
app is like 800 MB of updates, and you need to make some space for that. I'm like, that's just that's just madness. But yeah, I think that's so. So you're right. Maybe that's a smart move then, because if you have this contact, you don't need a Perplexity app or a
Yeah.
Chat GPT app on your phone.
Yeah, because if it's just a chat interface, why do I need an app to do a specific app to do that? Unless I'm trying to run stuff offline, which is a different thing. But
Correct.
the other thing that the Perplexity have said is that their agentic browser Comet is going to be launching in 3 to 5 weeks' time. We've been hearing about this for a little while, but now CEO Aravind Srinivas has said that the browser will have native virtual meeting recording and transcription and searches, but it's not going to be a part of the first release, but will be a follow-on update. So we'll see what the initial launch is like, hopefully in kind of about a month's time, and then how fast it develops from there.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because again, this is a very sensitive area. Browsers. We've
Mm.
already talked about this. Chrome, uh, already OpenAI has shown interest in buying Chrome
Yeah,
because
yeah.
browser is a
Although
key.
Google told them to get lost, because it's only if they're forced to sell it through the antitrust
Exactly.
stuff
Yeah,
we
yeah.
mentioned
So
last time.
you can see that browser is a key play to expand the usage universe. And obviously, if you're able to meet and record and do more things, like more operator type things using a browser like Comet, it just increases the buy-in,
Hmm.
increases the stickiness of the product. So definitely I can
Yeah.
see why they're going that direction. And that brings us to another player that has been quite interesting, Mistral.
Okay.
They've released two big products. One of them is Mistral Medium 3. Unfortunately, it's not open source, but it is cheap and powerful. Basically, it matches Sonnet 3.7 and Chat GPT-4 in benchmarks,
Okay.
and that
That's
I would
pretty
say
good.
is a big
Yeah.
achievement because both these models have been breaking all the benchmark records anyways. But
Yeah.
it has a 128K context. It is multimodal.
Okay.
Um, that's one of them. The other one is Le Chat, as we know that there's a big collaboration between the French
Mm.
government and the Mistral. We had the Le Chat version 1, and obviously it was quite a good quality model. They're now releasing Le Chat Enterprise. It's an agentic AI assistant for businesses with tools like Google Drive and agent building. So
Okay.
almost trying to replicate Copilot and trying to then get into some agentic areas. So I think that'll be quite interesting how that pans out for enterprise again. So agentic enterprise seems to be the two buzzwords these days. So they're just following
Yeah.
the herd, I would guess, in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, and they've also said that something large is coming next, so we'll watch that space. A little one,
Large.
and this is a player that some people may not be aware of, and which is intelligent internet. Hopefully, if you've been following the area, you'll recognise the name of the guy that runs it. So Emad Mostak, who was the founder of Stability AI, he was has been quite vocal. There's been a lot of podcasts and interviews and stuff with him. And literally just a couple of hours ago, earlier today, he posted that his latest company, Intelligent Internet, have released a free open source MIT licensed medical LLM called II Medical 8B, so presumably 8 billion parameters, which can run locally on a laptop without a GPU. It goes back to what you said earlier on
Wow.
about being
Yeah.
able to run stuff locally, without needing to go back to the cloud. And the performance, and it's really kind of the price performance comparison that blew me away. It's scoring a zero point 0.4 on Health Bench. That may not mean anything in isolation, but that's OpenAI's latest medical benchmark. And doctors without AI only score 0.15. So it's doing, more than doubly as well as a normal human doctor. O3 is currently the highest scoring, and they're at about zero point 0.6. But obviously, because it's running on your laptop, II Medical has zero inference costs.
Wow. That's brilliant, and I think
Yeah,
that shows us that this is the direction that we're going in, and as the disclaimer they put out says, not intended for clinical use at the moment in time. It should only be used for research and development. But that's just guys. If you think about it, if they can statistically prove they are outscoring by more than two times, almost three times, human doctors without AI.
yeah,
So it's definitely something that I will have in my apocalypse pack phone.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and basically, I did literally, when you were saying this to me, I was just creating images in my head. I'm assuming that's what everybody does when you hear something new, and I was thinking, okay, I'm with this app and I don't feel very well, and I have like a 3D printer that can print me using some basic materials, a medicine or a crutch or something that this model suggests to help me heal from an injury faster, help me remove a wart, like remove like some kind of poisonous thing from my body, whatever. So again,
Yeah,
you can imagine a world where you can be completely off the grid without needing a doctor, because there are a lot of off the grid enthusiasts, and when it comes down to health, it just they have to come back to the normal world to get treated for things. But at least with things like improved versions of II Medical 8B, you can definitely rely on it as a general physician
yeah,
at the least,
yeah.
that is telling you how to do things.
And this is, I think, and this is where the um, podcast name is hinting at this road to abundance. It's when you start combining all of these things together. So if you've got, a medical AI that can diagnose the problem and can figure out what a solution might be, as you say, combined with 3D printing for physical items, but then you combine it with technologies like precision fermentation for, programming the yeast to produce the particular compounds that you need to then be able to combine into whatever medicine it is you need, and combining that with robotics to be able to actually physically build whatever it is that you need to do, because you might not have the dexterity skills or the knowledge how to actually put something together. And
Yep.
yeah, whether it's an apocalypse, and you're having to do this completely off grid because you have to, or
Yep.
whether it's simply giving this kind of capabilities to anybody, no matter where they are in the world.
Yep. Like removing poverty,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
removing huge medical bills on someone's heads because they can't. Um, and also, this is also the reason why I stopped in between, was thinking about preventative medical intervention.
mm,
Is that using the simple things like wearables, people now can get warned about patterns of behaviors of pattern of consumption
yeah,
that this model can predict can lead to certain diseases, so saving a lot of money, that they would have potentially spent in treating complex medical conditions. Not every country has free Medicare and Medicare, so again, that'll be a big area to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had a personal example of using this kind of approach recently. You might remember one of the early episodes, one of the early conversations we had. I said that I'd been having an issue with my big toe, and I'd got it to
Yeah.
assess the X-ray that it had.
Yep.
I
Hmm.
just recently had a set of just regular health check blood tests done, and they came back and sort of rang the doctor and went, "Oh, it's all fine. There's no issues." I said, "Look, can you actually send me the report itself, which has got all of the details?" Yeah, yeah, that's fine. So they sent me that. So fed the document into the AI, asked it to explain it to me in sort of slightly simplified English. What are uh, the implications of it? And it agreed and said, yes, all looks fine. This particular thing looks like it me a little bit on the low end, not too much of an issue. So I then had a conversation about, well, what can I do to improve my levels with that? And it said, well, you could take these potentially kinds of supplements. But those ones, because they're specific to that particular level, can be higher priced than perhaps they need to be. So it actually asked me, would you like me to suggest more kind of off the shelf sort of generic stuff, which actually can do the same job in combination? Yes, please. So it gave me that. And then actually, I said, look, I'm based in the UK. Can you recommend some products which are good reviews and a good combination of price and performance, and got all of that. And then I went, gave me all the details I needed, and I've ordered them, and the products turned up yesterday. So
Brilliant. Live
it,
experiment. We will track your progress and we'll
yeah,
update
definitely.
everybody
So
about
fingers
the new test results.
fingers crossed. So maybe in sort of 6 months' time or 12 months' time, get the levels redone and see if it's had the relevant effect. But yeah, it's just having that access to knowledge, and it's not costing me anything to have these conversations. And it means I'm not trying to, spend time on the phone trying to get an appointment with the
Yeah.
doctor to have
My
these
God,
detailed
that's a nightmare.
conversations. So yeah, really like it. Really like it. Anyway, let's get off my medical issues, and let's get on to the Chinese carp section, or Chinese koi section, if you want to put it that way. And let's start with Alibaba. What have they been up to?
Yeah, they have open source Qwen 3, which is, as we covered in last episode, it ranges from 0.6 billion to 235 billion parameter size. It's just
Oh, that's
getting to the mad
huge.
world. I'm sure the only way to fill 235 billion parameter size is to feed the whole internet and then more AI generated content to fulfill
Yeah,
that. So it's a huge model, can run a country potentially.
yeah,
I'm only
yeah.
kidding, but yeah, it is the 30B MOE model performs.
Yeah, that's the mixture of experts one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like it's the coder, and it's faster, but it's lighter as well. So again, it's kind of showing us the way in the direction which the things are moving with
Yeah.
Quen.
And I think that's quite a common approach, and it makes a lot of sense. If you think about it, your brain, kind of does this to an extent. You've learned particular heuristics or whatever, or ways of doing things, and if you to think about how you approach stuff, quite often you are switching, or can feel a bit like you're switching between different aspects of your experience. So having a mixture of experts model makes a lot of sense, rather than just having one that's brilliant at everything. Being able to combine them together to get the best results.
Absolutely. I think that's how a lot of these models will the trajectory that will take will is exactly that. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's see how that goes. And so again, for Quen, their web dev sandbox lets you create front end sites and apps with prompt like just like what you do on your Canvas, Chat GPT, or Cursor.
Hmm.
It's like build a site like Uber, Facebook, whatever. So you are able to do that as well on their web dev sandbox. They've also announced that deep research on Quen Chat will be available soon.
Okay.
It is available actually for everyone. It pulls together a detailed report of complex subjects, complete with citations. So pretty much standard. Deep research has
Yeah.
become this standard offering of, instead of giving you a one line answer or one paragraph answer, it does the almost like the academic thing of going through the steps and the reasoning and then coming to a recommendation. So
Yeah.
that's pretty standard how things are moving these days.
Yeah, and we definitely want citations so that you can check where it got its information from, rather than going, well, that sounds good, but where did that come from? So yeah, citations are always useful.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
next one up, there's just short, just a couple of things from Baidu. So they've announced Ernie 4.5 Turbo and X1 Turbo as well. It does feel a little bit like kind of 1980s hot hatches, this, doesn't it? Kind of sticking turbo on the end of the name.
Turbo.
But yes, so those two again, both multimodal models, and they've also showcased, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, I'm sure, Xinjiang, which is a multi-agent AI tool that they reckon about 200 plus different use cases. So yeah, Baidu still churning out their stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like a great story as well. And Baidu, Alibaba being large
Mm,
organizations already have loads of users. So the good thing for them is the advantage of scale. So I think they don't
yeah,
really have an option, but rather just keep rolling out these models. And then we have our new entrant and the smartest and the fastest player in the market, DeepSeek. They've released the open source Prover V2, which is, oh, wait for it, 671 billion parameters.
good grief. I thought 325 was big.
Yeah, there you go. A 671 billion parameter model called Prover V2 for math and theorem proving. I'm
That
assuming
explains it if they're going to
that
try and do
explains it,
that.
right? Because it's
Yeah, yeah.
trying to then run all the simulation mathematically and try to run all the possibilities of at every step and then store results and trace paths and come back to it. So that's the reason that now explains why it's
Mm,
671B. But you can imagine having something like that in your back pocket would be crazy. And I think if you think about it again, the foundations of DeepSeek as an organization was originally a hedge fund
mm,
trying to make money in the share market. So this model is more in line to their original goal, because we know that DeepSeek R1 was more of an experiment of copying weights from, at least that's what
allegedly,
happened, is that
allegedly.
they copied weights from OpenAI's models and trained their model on it. But this is more in their area of expertise of analyzing mathematically and complex things around pricing these shares and valuing these shares that the hedge fund will be trading, or assets the hedge fund will be trading. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and it's another mixture of experts architecture, one that apparently works with Lean 4. So, yeah, somebody else going down that route. Another one, Xiaomi. So, some people know them through their smartphones, and they've dropped Mimo. This is a 7 billion parameter one, so quite a small one, very compact reasoning model. And what they're saying is that it competes well on the ones that have got 32 billion, those 32 billion parameter benchmarks. Quite a short context length, though. I mean, fair enough, given it's a 7 billion parameter model.
Yeah,
Contact length is only 32,000 tokens on that one. So,
it's because I think that's also again another topic to add to our regular pod, is effectively think about the companies are being true to their core. If you think about
mm,
it, DeepSeek
mm,
is a hedge fund funded organization. They wanted to make models for solving complex mathematical calculations or predicting stock prices in the future and whatever, or demand supply of commodities and stuff like that, really complex calculations. And therefore their model is a 671B, large huge model. They don't care about being economical about how much money they spend on compute. But Xiaomi is majoritically a device and phone developer,
mm.
so their
And they
view
want stuff
is
that's going to run on their devices.
on the devices. So therefore this Mimo 7B is ideal, because they want to do it the exact opposite. They want to be able to produce smaller models that are, as they're already proving, performing better than, almost competing well with 32B benchmarks. And if it's a Mimo 7B running and not using a lot of battery and compute on your mobile, and
Yeah,
doesn't need a really advanced GPU, then Xiaomi will be able to release more advanced phone technology or wearable technology or VR technology, leveraging these models and enabling use cases that'll be interesting. So I think that's just, it's another maybe a theme that we can keep an eye out for going forward as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And we've talked about XAI. We're now going to go to the end of the alphabet, and a one that I'd not come across, which is z.ai, who've released their GLM 432 billion parameter, and this is a coding focused one. And they've also released some smaller reasoning versions as well. And they've got a free testable chat interface if anybody wants to give this one a go. Chat.z.ai. So you can go and have a look at that one. I've not had a chance to play with that, so I don't know much more beyond that. Final
Yeah,
one
I think
on
it's just
our
definitely. I'm gonna definitely give it a go.
yeah, I'll give it a go a bit later on. So, final one from our Chinese carp, Chinese koi section is 10 cent. I always think about sort of 50 cents, so maybe this is the budget version. But 10 cent, who've launched Hunyuan Custom, which is a video generation framework that maintains subject consistency and also syncs the audio to the visuals. And they're saying this is outperforming competitors in the video metrics of FaceSim, but it does need at least 24 gigabytes of VRAM, and it does say they recommend 80 gigabytes. So this is
Yeah.
not for your average laptop, this one.
No, this is. I think this is Tencent is a large Chinese organization, and they have
Mm.
been big into gaming. And again, this again is just so brilliant, so amazing that there's like a obvious understanding that's just coming out of this is that their model is focused on video generation, which means that it's more focused on content creation, gaming content creation, or games. So obviously, 80 GB of VRAM you'll have only have if you have like a game development studio who's building a game that
Yeah.
requires really realistic audio visuals and other aspects to be generated. So I think that's just another alignment that we are seeing here. And it's also testable. You can we'll share the link in the description. They call it
Yeah,
the
it's a
Hunyan
model
model
square,
square.
Hunman model square. Yeah, so we'll
Yeah,
drop a link into that.
yeah.
So, quick bit of other news. Going back to Cursor, for anybody that's interested, they are giving away free 1 year pro subscriptions, but only if you're a student. So it is worth having a look. It was a little bit misleading the way they announced this originally. They kind of got, oh, it's free for students. Well, yes, it is, but only for the first year. So cursor.com/students. So if you're lucky enough to fall into that category, go and give
Please do.
Cursor a go.
Absolutely. I think that the students will lap it up because everybody now, every young person I speak to these days, they want to, get involved in coding and do things like that. And yeah, so a golden opportunity with Cursor having the best models. It'll be interesting to see what they mean when they say free, because
Yeah.
they're allowing leveraging OpenAI APIs. So I'm assuming you'll have to have your own API keys at least, but some of the free models will be available for you, which I believe as a student I would have lapped it up and played with it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
we
we've
have
got
Windsurf.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
Windsurf. Go on. No, go on. You do.
Windsurf Wave 8 it has added the multi-chat support, and rules like the way Cursor works. It allows multimodal plugins, a JB plugin. They've also got Teams 1.8 updates, so I think that's quite interesting. And there's the audio model that we talked about last time, where they have generated a Suno 4.5.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I've played with Suno a few times. I haven't tried 4.5, but I was really impressed with what it came up with.
Yeah, and Suno. It's funny. So Suno is a very popular Hindi or Urdu word, which means hear me, or hear. So Suno is like
Oh,
so it's interesting that Suno means hear. It's like just hearing something, and it's
right.
an audio model, so it's definitely an influence
I
coming from
didn't know
that
that was where
direction.
the name came from.
I don't know. That's just my total guess, and I mean, it's
I
less likely to
suspect
be a
you're right.
coincidence. It
Yeah.
seems like. Yeah, so it's gotten better at genre blending, expressive vocals. It is allowed to be 8 minute long now, so you can have really
Wow.
long
I mean, it used to be sort of,
durations.
30 seconds, and
30
you would have
seconds,
to
yeah,
generate multiple bits and try and piece them together. And
yeah. And now it's doing faster generation as well. So I'll not be surprised. Not just beginners, but top artists just playing with it, and now being able to release 365 singles every
yeah,
one song every day of the year.
yeah. I mean, it's all, we're seeing this with all models, aren't we? Basically, bigger, better, faster, cheaper.
Yeah, correct. That's
So,
definitely seems to be the
right.
trend, and yeah, we are
Yeah.
on the J curve. So there you go.
Yeah. One I saw and I was having a little bit of a play with is the latest thing from HeyGen, which is voice mirroring. And they're saying it's kind of more sort of parody, not cloning. But this is where you can have one of their avatars, because obviously HeyGen's one of the things they're best known for is their avatars. But being able to have an avatar with a different voice, but it mirrors the way that you're talking. So it'll take a voice clip of you as an input, and then it will speak using the avatar in the avatar's voice, but mirroring your kind of intonation and speed and the emotion that you've put into it.
All
So
right.
it's quite a good way of essentially voice acting, I
Yeah,
guess,
I agree.
without
You can
actually
make it more
needing
visual.
to change your voice yourself. So it's a much more advanced version of those old, you remember the old voice changing apps and things that used to get make you sound like Mr. Robot or whatever.
Yeah,
But this is taking it, several levels on from that.
yeah. I think I'll definitely play around with that as well because sounds exciting. I mean, I
Yeah, it's
think
good fun.
yeah, it's just yeah, as it says, just for parody, it just seems good fun.
Yeah,
The next one is LTX Video 13B. So LTX Video's most powerful open source model yet. We love open source, so there you go, another one.
yeah,
Multi-scale rendering for better fine details. I think that was one of the challenges before, but now it enables it. It is better motion and scene understanding. It supports keyframes, camera and character motion, and multi-shot sequences. So again, you can have like a different perspectives generated, then choose and pick from them, which is quite good. It's still fast, but it can run on a local GPU. I think anything till 32B it can run, but 32B at the moment, because I run my GPU, which is 16 gigs of GPU memory.
hmm
32B kind of struggles a bit, but I think 13B will, as it's claiming, will run pretty smoothly.
yeah. Cool. Well, let's a couple of quick sort of stats and legal news. So, first one is that apparently OpenAI is still holding around 80% of Gen AI traffic despite more competition. So, we talk about so many different models and so many different competitors, on this podcast, but the 800-pound gorilla definitely still seems to be OpenAI.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the first mover's advantage, and I think obviously they have some great people that help them keep ahead. And then it's just interesting. I just want to be the fly on the wall that sits in their the product roadmap meetings, and think, oh, this week we have two releases. We'll release the 4.1 to everybody, and we'll improve the 4.0 model significantly, and we'll improve the memory. I'm
Yeah.
sure there must be a memory product owner, they'll product manager. There'll be must be a I don't know, like a 4.0 product manager who's like just their job is just to keep things grinding, and then they're fighting that no, it's my big moments, don't overshadow me.
Yeah.
I think it'd just be a great experience to be involved in that kind of conversation.
Yeah. And Google Notebook LM. So, for those of you that have used that, and this will really please, I'm sure, some of our Eastern European colleagues, because they've added 50 new languages now, including Russian and Ukrainian. So, if you've been a bit limited or perhaps not been using it because English isn't your first language, then definitely go back and give Google Notebook LM another chance. So it's the one where you can feed in all your different sources and it create podcasts and things for
I,
you.
I would
So,
I would love to have it because one of my curiosities have always been, and my dad does this a lot. He reads a lot of Sanskrit scriptures, really really
okay.
old, 4,000 year old
Oh,
texts,
wow.
and they're like they're talking of things like first principles thinking, and then those aspects, and things like reasoning and defining what logic is. Before,
Ah,
you can imagine, 4,000 years ago. So I almost want to check if Sanskrit is one of those 50 languages, and I'm sure my dad and I would definitely have a play around with uploading some of that text and listening to a podcast.
that would be
Reason with
fascinating.
it. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you can upload it in one language and get it to
Yeah,
generate a podcast in another.
yeah, because understanding
Yeah.
Sanskrit is not easy. It's a
Mm,
difficult language to understand because it's really not. It's deliberately to protect its own purity has not evolved as a colloquial language.
Mm,
In India, I've got Hindi, which is like what you speak on a daily basis. It's almost like, if you think about Latin or like core languages, like Sanskrit is one of those
yeah.
core languages that a lot of other languages was derived from.
Yeah. Cool. So, bit more on law and order. So, China first. So, Xi Jinping has now made AI self-sufficiency a national priority, supporting domestic chips and education. Not surprising, with our the current administration in the US, who seem to just change the rules at the drop of a hat. So, yes, don't want to be relying on anything that's being imported from the US. So, yeah, definitely trying to support their domestic industry. And I think, we're going to see this in a lot of areas, not just sort of AIs and chips and things like that. Countries going, do you know what? We're just going to try and be self sufficient in what we do and not rely on stuff that's being imported from overseas.
Exactly, and I think that this is the like an announcement, a political thing, I think. But as we have been seeing, the Chinese models have already been, on it. So I think
Mm,
the key focus this time is on, production of chips, and because that's one strategic ability that China is trying to develop really, really hard, and I think that'll be a key advantage long term. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The next one is UAE. They are going to introduce AI curriculum for kindergarten to grade
wow.
12 in 2025. So I think that's slightly concerning from my perspective.
Mm,
I think that I'd be very, very apprehensive of. I have a 16-month-old baby, so I would
okay.
be very, very apprehensive to introduce education to her using AI. It
I
has to be
guess I
heavily
guess it depends how they
supervised.
approach it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Are they using it to design curriculum and they're teaching them I guess we'll wait and see. But
Yeah,
and it's not just the UAE, because we've now got over 250 tech CEOs, and this includes kind of people from Microsoft and Uber and Khan Academy, etc., signing a letter urging mandatory AI education in US, at least high schools. And Trump signed an executive order to expand AI education from K-12. So it's unavoidable, but I do absolutely take your point that
but
how
I think
young
it's
is too
interesting.
young.
I think it's interesting also to understand that obviously the way I see it is that by AI education we mean like different aspects, which is like awareness of
Mm, mm,
negative patterns or of negative use cases or manipulation from AI, or someone using AI to manipulate you, how to protect yourself from it, how to still stay objective and not get biased by reading an AI response. So I think those aspects make sense to me, because then sometimes when I keep scrolling like the internet, social media, I realize that I'm kind of trapped by the algorithm at times, and you want to step back. So if this
yeah,
AI education is on these tenets of making sure that these children know when they're engaging with AI, it's not. I really hope it's not about building AI, because building AI, as we see, is becoming quite automated. So it's like,
yeah,
it's not about building it, but leveraging AI to get things done, or leveraging AI to learn better.
yeah.
I believe that that is the right decision and the right move to make, because obviously you can skip going through all these books that are not been updated in 100 years,
Mm,
and you having to memorize it and give an exam to prove that your memory is good.
yeah,
Rather than doing
yeah.
that, you can actually give them real education leveraging AI.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me of a quote. I can't remember who said it, but and I may misquote it slightly, but said the problem is we've got Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And I think that's
No,
probably
that's actually very apt. Yeah.
yeah, fairly good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So, science and tech, and we're going back a little bit to AI models. And this is another name that people might not have come across, Future House, but they will probably recognize the name of the person behind it, Eric Schmidt, obviously originally from Google, who've launched 4 AI research agents. So they've got Crow, which is a general purpose agent. So that's one that can, a bit like a deep research, search
Yeah.
literature, provide concise scholarly answers, perfect for use via API. Falcon, which is specialized for the deep literature reviews, so can search and synthesize more scientific literature than any of the other agents that they're aware of, and also has access to several specialized scientific databases like Open Targets. Because that's often a problem, these ones
Yes.
that are trying to do scientific research, basically they hit paywalls, and they
Yeah.
can't actually access the data that's behind them. So open targets would suggest perhaps it's, maybe that's an open source one, but that's definitely a challenge that they need to overcome.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really taking it to the next level. So again, let's cover the other two. So Owl is the next one, and it's specialized to answer the question: has anyone done this before? Which is brilliant, right? You want that. Next one is
Yeah,
Phoenix, which is an agent with access to specialized tool to allow it to help researchers in planning chemistry experiments. So it's focused on chemistry, but you can imagine. I am assuming Eric Schmidt has launched this. Eric Schmidt backed startup, which is Future House, has launched this to not be used by humans, surprisingly. So this will be
okay.
agents calling this API to figure out how to give users things that they need without exposing what they are doing behind the scenes. So it's almost like, if I asked, oh, how can I do it? How can I do something? Then the agent will then call these APIs to actually figure it out and get an answer.
Yeah,
And then instead of just using an LLM generated response from Transformer from purely generic sources, it can call the specialized model to really, really give you a very detailed and very specific answer in steps. And then obviously you can imagine
yeah,
the chain of negotiation between this API and the agent, and then other agents. You can imagine the when it reaches to you, it'll be a very filtered response. And it kind of slightly concerns me that because it'll all be, and this is another thing that we can discuss, it'll all be happening so fast and so behind the scenes
yeah.
that I think the key
What?
would be to break into that into steps and being able to control it and to say that
Yeah.
no, 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 that's fine. Don't go in that direction. Go in this direction, type of thing.
What this puts me in mind of, it actually reminded me of another news story that I saw just recently, which is, I can't remember the name of the organization. I'll try and find it for the next one, which is that, or perhaps we'll put it into the show notes, is a company that is using essentially kind of commercial off the shelf robotic manipulators, but being able to program them with the experiment that needs to be run. So, kind of scientific experiments in the lab, but just using natural language. So, you don't need to know how to program a robot, you just describe the experiment that you want it to run.
Yeah,
So hold that thought. Then think about the likes of what they often refer to as the dark kitchens. So, like when you do your food orders and they're just prepared in some industry, industrial warehouse unit, so they don't have a shop front, just kind of
yeah,
happens in there. So, kind of take all of that, put it together. You've got what you're saying here. So you think about a problem you want to solve, or a material that you need, or a chemical compound that you need, or something like that. You're handing off to agents that can go and look, well, has anybody done this before? How would I design this? Perhaps handing off to AlphaFold or something like that, coming back, planning the experiment, then handing off the experiment description to this model that then controls the robots that actually run the physical experiment in the real world, read the results, give it back to you, feed it in, go around that loop, and ultimately deliver you something that's not only sort of a description of something that might work, but something that's actually been experimentally validated, and go, we've not only done this, we've designed it, we've built it, we've tested it, it
exactly.
works.
I think that
Wow.
you're absolutely talking about something. The way I see it, this is not something that's 10 years away from here.
No,
I think
all
that's
the
what you would.
components exist now.
Yeah, exactly. What you're describing is, yeah, is just like Black Mirror. It's something that's possible now with leveraging everything, every technology you have now. So
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah. Well, we mentioned robotics, but talking about robotics arms, but let's talk about humanoid robots. And obviously, the latest news just in the last day or two is Tesla have just released another video of their Optimus bot doing some very agile dancing. It looks like it's doing a bit of ballet, a bit
Yeah.
of what to me almost looks like tap dancing, and lots more. Now, there's people kind of going, yeah, we saw Boston Dynamics doing backflips 10 years ago, so what? But the key thing with this one is that it's been trained using reinforcement learning and simulation, so being able to go through lots of training very quickly, but then importantly transferred zero shot to the real world hardware. And that's kind of the key
Wow.
thing here, is just how fast they can teach it how to do new things. And bear in mind, they're still using the linear actuators, which there was some
Yeah.
people kind of going, oh, they're too slow. And they move too slowly to be able to give us natural movements. Tell you what, if you haven't seen it, go and watch that
I
that,
will.
that
I
latest
will check
Optimus
it out.
video. Yeah, really good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he's saying
Yeah. I
that
think,
Elon's saying that the robots are walking around the office 24/7 with no one watching over them and charging themselves as needed.
wow. Brilliant. I think that's
Yeah,
this is embedding robots into society slowly.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
he also said that he'll have an Optimus dance troupe on the stage with him at the next shareholder meeting.
Oh, I'll be interested to see that because I know the Tesla shareholder meeting has been delayed a little bit. I mean, normally I think it's about June, and we're still waiting for them to announce the date. So maybe that's the reason for them. They're still in training, still in the dance studio, watching themselves in the mirror and making sure that they're doing it right.
Correct. Okay, we had the recent Bloomberg interview for Jensen Huang, the main man at the moment,
Yep.
obviously the NVIDIA CEO. He said he thinks humanoid robotics is a $50 trillion market that
Wow.
wants to grow. And that just gives you an idea that when Jensen is saying it, because he is thinking just from the perspective of different levels of growth, because you need robots to build these chips, you need robots to mine the materials you need to build these things, then you need the robots to do all the automation, all the
Yeah.
manufacturing of other derived things. So you can imagine that there's definitely something of an explosion of
Yeah.
robotics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we get a lot of people kind of going, oh, but we've got industrial robots, humanoids aren't optimized for that particular thing, and they're just missing the point, which is, yes, if you've got, enough volume, if you like, within your business to be doing basically the same single task over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, then yes, perhaps an industrial type robot, the kind of more conventional style ones, that makes sense. But if you want to be flexible and adaptable and you don't quite know what tasks you're going to want to do, maybe you're a smaller business that is doing lower volumes, then humanoid robots make a lot of sense. There's a huge amount of demand for the sort of labor to do that, and we discussed it in a previous
Yeah.
episode. Where companies have historically outsourced their labor to cheap markets, cheap humans. But if you've got humanoid robots that can do them, you can bring that back on shore, and it goes back to this point about being able to be more self-sufficient and not reliant on international supply chains.
Exactly. And I think the one thing that I remember that Elon said on the same topic is that they try to reason for first principles in terms of, what's the best manipulation tool for objects uh, in a general purpose, way. It turns out the human hand,
Mhm.
the five fingers, and the kind of the degrees of freedom we have in this hand, turns out to be is the most efficient to be able to manipulate objects in a very specific way that is
Yeah,
more general purpose. And you can imagine this proves that the reality is simulation, and we are just the beneficiaries of having the evolution to be able to kind of evolve to have the best objects the nature can design. So that's another angle to say that like you were saying, it's not a repeatable activity that you can program a robot to do time in and time out. It's a
yeah.
general
Things are
purpose
different.
manipulation of objects is the
Yeah,
hands are the best to do it, and that's why humanoid, you can just multiply the same or extrapolate the same point to all the different muscles and fibers in the body, and the way they function is exactly why humanoids is maybe the right decision in terms of robotics.
yeah. I remember there was going back to that point about hands. somebody said, we'll know when humanoid robots, their hands are really good when they can count change in their pocket. So
Yes.
basically, because we can as humans, if you know your local currency, you can stick your hand in your pocket and you can count. And you know how many, in the UK, 1p's, 2p's, 5p's, 10p's, pound coins, whatever you've got, and you work out how much change you've got in your pocket just by touching it. And I saw a video, a humanoid robot video, just a few days ago, where most of the ones that we've seen, the robots are watching what they're doing and they're moving from one thing to another. This one, the robot had its hand in the box and it was looking away. I'll try and do this with with my phone, sort of kind of, all right, like that, looking away and sort of feeling for the object and picking the right thing out without looking at it, just doing it by
Brilliant.
touch. So
That's
that's
not
kind
what
of
they're getting at.
that's where it's going in that direction. And I'm sure that this robot hand isn't quite that dexterous, but Hugging Face, who everybody will know for kind of running their models, have open sourced a robotic hand, the SO101, for $100. And they're saying it's easy to assemble, it's better parts, and there is a DIY guide on
Wow. I'll
GitHub.
definitely
Um,
be I'll definitely be
so
ordering one, definitely.
3D print your own robot hands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. Cool. Now, moving on to another interesting area, military tech. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
EU launched a 19 million euro FMB tech project to develop fifth gen modular AI powered tanks
Fifth
led by
gen, I haven't come
Thales.
across their first gen ones yet, but I suppose
No,
this
no,
is
no. So,
perhaps
so
in
basically,
development.
this is the recent conversations with recent wars popping up everywhere,
Yeah,
including the most recent one between India and Pakistan. I
yeah.
think that the fourth generation is advanced weaponry, but still controlled by humans,
Oh,
and
right. Okay, I
limited
get you.
ability. So fourth generation has limited ability to make AI decisions, which means the target still needs to be defined by the humans in terms of what is a target. So it has to be trained on that model. Fifth generation is the tanks themselves making the judgment calls. And I think that's where the controversial
Mm,
line exists
yeah,
to say to cross it or not cross it. But
yeah.
that's how I read my understanding of fifth gen is literally
You,
that. So
yeah, you're putting me in mind of there was a TED talk that Palmer Luckey, who most people will know best for the Oculus headset, and his military tech
Anduril,
company Anduril, which we've spoken about before. He did a TEDx talk recently, but I watched the interview with him afterwards because they were kind of challenging this about, do we want weapons making their own decisions and things like that? And he was very strong in his opinions, very vocal about the fact that we have had weapons that kind of make a decision in a loose sense to kill people without human intervention for decades. Think about
yeah,
mines. Or any of these kind of sort of historical loitering munitions. You've deployed the weapon into the field, and all
yeah,
right, it doesn't distinguish between who steps on it, but
it
which an
still
AI
kills
would.
people
So you
today.
kind of it still kills people today. So if you've got something that actually thinks about who it's going to kill rather than just kills indiscriminately, maybe that's a better way of doing things. Yeah, it
Yeah,
gets us
correct.
back into
So
the
a
whole
mind that can
slaughter
see
stuff. But
a mind that can see you that says, "Oh,
yeah,
this is just a normal human being walking across," and or this is a friendly soldier
yeah,
just literally alone, or it's an enemy soldier but he's alone and injured, and therefore no need to kill them. So again,
yeah,
that's kind of
yeah,
interesting. So I think you're right. I think there's both sides of the picture, which is I think that's
yeah,
how the that's potentially what we will protect us in the long term, right? Making sure that we
yeah.
see both sides of the picture.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching that interview with Palmer Luckey after that
I'm
TEDx talk
definitely
because
going to
he,
check
he
it out.
raises he raises some interesting points. So moving on to a slightly more hopefully cheerful side of things, which is food and agriculture. So just trying to expand this out a little bit away from the purely AI side of things. So May the 13th, scientists announced the completion of a fully functional synthetic yeast chromosome, the SC 2.0 project, which are saying performs robustly even under stress. For those of you that don't know, this is the kind of thing that enhances the potential for engineered yeast in precision fermentation. I've mentioned this already, for being able
Yeah,
to produce food ingredients like dairy proteins or biofuels, because obviously we want to get away from traditional fossil fuels. We want to try and
correct.
get away from kind of conventional agriculture because of the amount of deforestation that creates, the amount of methane it creates, things like that. So there's a clear direction, down precision fermentation, cellular agriculture, and stuff like that. So this synthetic yeast chromosome is a key part of actually getting us towards
It
that.
is. It is, and I think that if you think about it, right, this the formation of petroleum is like it's literally a biofuel if you think about it, right? It's like
Yes,
it
yes,
comes from different stages of fossilization of the coal and becomes a coal and then effectively becomes petroleum, and I think that this is kind of an attempt to to make that process faster and also then determine the amount of carbon that exists in the fuel so that when it burns it doesn't release harmful gases, it burns completely. So I think that's just again almost like the abundance, the
yeah.
abundance,
Yeah, and
going
again,
back to
back to
our
that off
previous
grid
theme.
and being
Yeah,
able to open source it, and if you go back to Rethink X, they've been talking about this for years, talking about food as software. So this
yeah,
is precisely the kind of thing they're talking about, being able to create stuff synthetically that will then generate the outputs that you want. Yeah,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
So final section, ethics and edge cases. So we've got a bit of news from the US metro system, I think.
Yeah, interesting. So the New York City subway is testing AI cameras to detect aggressive behavior before the incidents. So it's not
Oh,
based on facial recognition, uh, because I think that's obviously we have seen it play out in London and being protested very heavily facial
yeah.
recognition. So it's again US is not trying to be controversial, saying it's not facial recognition, it's looking for behaviors, it's not looking for people. So it's interesting.
Okay.
How would you look
Is
at
this
behavior?
Minority Report and pre-crime? So,
It is trying to do that because if you remember, that is what I think the London experiment was all about. But obviously, we
mm,
didn't have AI as advanced as we have now. So obviously,
yeah.
hopefully, this works out. But I mean, because if you remember the unfortunate incident in New York, I think two of them. One of them was like literally someone who was absolutely deluded, literally threw some fuel on someone and burned them
Oh,
on the New York subway. That was absolutely horrific. The second one was literally without any provocation. Someone pushed someone else in front of a New York subway, and they got crushed by the
oh,
subway.
yeah, I
Which is
remember
again,
that one.
so so hopefully, I mean, if you're able to just by the pattern of walking, the gait. I'm sure you'll have to look at the facial features, which
Mm,
means trying to it's not try to match you against the database, which
yeah,
which is the most obvious thing I would say when I'm building something
yeah,
like that. But it will do that, but it will be able to predict that you are unstable or you're on drugs or something that means that you're not in full control of your faculties and could do potentially something
mm,
harmful. So yeah, I mean, it's eerie, it's panoptical, it's kind of
mm.
a thing of something like a panopticon, but are we not already living in a panopticon? So
Well, this is
again,
true. Certainly, if you go around any of the major cities, you are being
yeah,
watched by sort of Big Brother and Little Brother and everything everywhere you go.
everybody else, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
So,
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So the next one I saw, this was quite interesting. I did actually watch the video of this one, which is last week for the first time we had an AI avatar of a deceased person giving a victim impact statement in court, possibly the first case ever. It was really quite weird to see.
Yeah, yeah, I saw the video and I was like, phew, it's just it's just strange, and obviously the quirks with the current technology of AI video generation, which is not perfect. It just feel a bit eerie, but at least the person was Chris Belke, and they were shot in a road rage incident in 2021. And basically, their family went ahead and recreated a video made by his sister to offer forgiveness to his killer. I think that
Oh,
so
that's
just think
really
about
quite
it.
sweet. Yeah,
The ends, the objective, and the intention was really the right intention,
yeah.
was to almost offer some kind of peace from inside because the killer is getting the sentence anyways. But I think the idea was to at least make them slightly less uh, sad about themselves because obviously
Mm,
they've done it, they've gone through the system, they're going to get punished. But
yeah,
yeah, interesting, and makes me think of very, very. It's strange, but it's kind of showing you unexpected things we're gonna get with this
yeah,
technology.
yeah. I know, but doesn't always go quite so well. So, final one for today. A separate New York case involved a defendant using an AI avatar to appear in court remotely. And plaintiff Jerome DeWald, was in court 2 weeks ago for an employment dispute, and he tried to play a video to present his case. But it featured an AI-generated avatar he created to act as his legal representative. And he said he'd used it because he feared he would stumble or mumble during oral arguments if he represented himself. But he didn't tell the court, and the judges were not happy about it. One of the judges said on the record, "I don't appreciate being misled. You are not going to use this courtroom as a launch for your business, sir." So he got a thorough rap across the knuckles for trying to pull a fast one on that one.
And it's just so typical of the character of the judge to say say this, like, I'm not going to use this. You're not going to use this courtroom to launch your business, sir. Like, I almost want to now see the AI version of the judge playing out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that entertaining note, I think that's probably us done for today. So, as always, please, if you have enjoyed this episode, do like, subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon, turn your notifications on so you are notified when we come out with episode 4, which should be out in a couple of weeks' time. Don't forget the club website as well, so have a look on there, engx.space, and the GitHub repository as well. And we will see you next time on the next episode. So from me and from Govind, thanks. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.